こんにちは、こんにちは。バークリー音楽大学でティーチャーをしています。デイデラスさんにも来ていただきました。ありがとうございます。Hi, デイデラス。
Nice to see you again, Mayumi.
Yes. So, been like 4 5 years, I think.
A little bit more.
Oh,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit more, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Also, like, yeah. You you have like SP, right?
Yes, I had to. I had the SP-404, and I gave it to Kuma after his fire some years ago, and I always felt like I needed to get back in. So I kind of skipped. I was sleeping on the 404 for a little while, and I saw other people really getting down. The 505 as well. LA is always abundant with those sounds. And so when the 404 Mark II came around, I was like, I need to get back in right away. And it was a great choice because of all the updates. I feel like it's a living, breathing instrument that keeps on catching up with me. Because to be honest, like, I use it mostly as a sound design space where I'm like using the effects, leaning on that a lot, the iconic effects. So I'm not really dealing with things on pads, but because of all the feature set, I felt like I had to get involved in the DJ mode and stuff like that. It's kind of akin to how I work with other bigger systems, but the fact it's so small and battery powered, so occasionally I'm traveling or on trains, just plug in and go. It's a little too useful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that being said, like, I'm still catching up with some of the new features in the latest software version. I know the DJ mode's gotten better, and I know some other things, and I'm still, like, I'm getting oriented on the different actions. So I'm happy to be sitting down with you so I can kind of know more.
Yeah.
I know you get down.
I mean, we were talking about that earlier. It's like really convenient to almost abandon all your other sort of elements when you sort of like are going traveling and doing multiple shows across state or in another, country or whatever. And kind of the beautiful flexibility of a unit that you can really cook up in, or just, really use it as like an effect-based thing and then all that stuff. So, but yeah, no, I mean, like, I feel like I'm like the newcomer to like the beat scene, here, right? But yeah, I love this unit. It's a special one for sure.
I would ask though too, and not to interrupt, but like, do you have settings that you really lean on? I love the fact too that like people can use the same effect and just by touch have their own way that they bring their personality to it.
Yeah, so I like when I'm cooking up in this box, I have like 4 layers of compression. That's sort of like what I'm doing. So I love the fact that I have stationary bus effects. I use that all the time. Always using like some form of like cassette or saturation, and then like the 404 compression or 303 compression, and then I'll just slam 1 and 2 with compressors or like whatever. I just try to like get this thing to just pump as best as I can.
Great. That's its sound. That's the iconic thing. Yeah,
and that's what I think we were talking about this earlier too. My favorite thing about this is that you can sort of like let your ingredients dictate what you're creating if you're cooking up in here. So I really try to let my samples guide me instead of really having these formulaic things. But yeah,
cool.
Just, simple things, but I just feel like working with it a lot, you just sort of you figure out how to do the simple things in the way that a 404 wants you to do the simple things.
It has some opinion, right?
Yeah, it has a lot of opinion. Yeah,
it's not benign. I like that too.
Yeah. But so are you cooking up? You said you're not really cooking up in it?
I do on occasion. When I first got it, I was like, okay, I want to learn this thing a little bit, so I just started to approach it as it kind of suggested. But this was on some of the previous software, and so it was easy enough to get the sample in and out of it, much easier than the 303, which you had to really work around.
Oh my God.
And then also the fact too that like the different modalities, I was shifting back and forth between DJ mode and the kind of more typical sampler. But then again, the iconic effects have me a little bit like, it's funny because we're still playing chase with so many other boxes and units like in Ableton and other programs. I find myself often trying to find similar metaphors for something as iconic as like the beat repeat sound.
Yeah.
Beat repeat in Ableton works very differently. It's kind of like a pushy pulley, kind of a sway thing.
Yeah.
This is just extremely performed and playable. And so like I'm doing EDI stuff here.
Yeah.
I find myself oftentimes suggesting to students, well, why don't you think about something that's more interrupting the sound or kind of engaging with it? And sometimes it's hard to express that this isn't a return box. It's like an overall effect that gets installed rather than being something that you kind of feel the tail of, and it just feels different. And again, I end up playing them some beat scene stuff or like, kind of iconic LA productions so they can really hear it immediately. And it's cool that the machine like is a preset box in the way that you can immediately sound like some of these iconic producers, but then also like just by figuring out how your hands want to go, you get somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, letting all those effects feel expressive, I think, is like the key.
But I should get more into the way that the sample itself can install something. Like I love that using mono products or other kinds of hands-on devices where I'm playing through. This is obviously a little bit of a different proposition where you're mostly at the top of a sample, but now with cue points, I feel like there's just this other communication. I just gotta get more used to it.
Yeah. No, I feel like for me, it's quick, right? Throw something on one pad, get your drums, time it, and then you throw it out, and you just mess with the trim knobs, and it just, it's really, really quick and really, really, I don't know, just really fun.
That's rad.
Creative, but
the kind of internal resampling mode too is key.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes, they made it. You know, did you use the koala? Have you ever used the koala?
I mean, again, because I feel like as a modern producer, you're supposed to know everything, or as a teacher maybe, or whatever. Like you feel like you have to be responsible for everything.
Too much.
I don't. My devices, screen devices and stuff, I have a hard time with workflow because I find it like I'm checking my email, I'm doing my socials, I'm not doing the beats.
Hard boundaries.
I have a hard thing. Same thing with Ableton Note. All these different, like, you know, also Andrew Huang has his own platform for sample manipulation, kind of maneuvering.
Mm-hmm.
But like all of it, I just couldn't get like one of the things I love about this unit so much is the screen, although there isn't, and it's giving me important details, it's not the waveform, it's not anything else, it's the music. And to me, that's, like if I'm gonna be, you know, it's so hard enough to even just be making music on a laptop nowadays. Time is stolen, so this is so concentrated.
Yes. Koala in this, very similar vibes.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Very similar vibes.
Good to know. I gotta do.
But this is not a phone, so like, different vibes in that way. You know what I'm saying? So
cool.
Could you talking about the history of like a SP, like a, I think maybe people getting started using like a SP SX in LA, like maybe some Thieves also, like a Ras G also. Can you remember that like a situation? Could you...
I was really lucky enough to tour in Brazil with Madlib in like 2003, 2004, a long time ago.
That's it. Getting started to listen
legendary moment.
Totally. And Madlib had this technique that he would do with his SP, where he would do this thing, and I still talk about this in my sampling class, but he would needle drop the record and record all the moments. So not just like find a sample, cue it up, and play it back and record. He would record even just needle dropping. And so if he found something, he didn't even have to wheel it back up or change it. He would just immediately start chopping. And I mean, obviously the SP, especially those earlier SPs, were kind of made to work with vinyl. It was like, it's a different era for Roland. It didn't have all the flexibility, all the ways that it worked. It really was made to kind of immediately work with source material from vinyl situations or whatever else, and even step it up and kind of get into the box and immediately begin working with it. And a lot of iconic music, I mean, as far as I know, Madlib would be cooking up so many beats at a single moment, make just beat tape after beat tape, just because of simply finding just the right sample that already had a suggestion of movement and flow that he would already have endowed with it with the needle drop. So genius. And I know other people were using it for purpose, even at that time, but I hadn't seen somebody so fluid with a sampler at that point. Like, I'd had the chance to see JD working with beats with his MPC and stuff, but that was a little after he had moved to LA and stuff. And he was really fluent and would freak the buttons, like make it all work. But it was so different to have the source being so close. Like Dilla already had the samples broken across the steps and like doing work. I hadn't seen him so much dropping on records or kind of pulling up on source. And so Madlib doing that really opened my mind. And also, like, I had the chance to work in session with Madlib a little bit up until that point because of the work we had done on Invention or on The Quiet Party, the little EP and stuff. And so I had a notion of what he did, but I hadn't seen it so, like, somebody so in the music and so inflamed by it and so happening and just making amazing beats out of just stuff that people would have tossed aside. He just had a great insight towards it. And yeah, the SP was so central to his workflow and it's so battery powered and like just things that were so difficult about traveling internationally in terms of making beats, and he was so good. So yeah, it was hard not to be like, I want to do that. I want to take part in that. And so that's when I got my SP around the same time. Yeah.
Quite a catalyst right there.
Yeah. So much on so many
catalyst.
things. Yeah. I mean, Madlib was that dude. So yeah. But also, and Brazil was so full of like, you would go to these towers of vinyl, like these in Sao Paulo specifically, these just like these these kind of almost look like apartment complexes, but you would go in the middle and then there would just be endless rings of these record stores. And I don't know if those have stuck around. I don't know if the culture still has the capacity for that. But again, like you would just have to go off vibes. You would be like, you know, the vendor, the dealer would be like, this is a record that's known. And you would be like, I don't know if this is known to me. Like, I don't know if this, and you know, of course there's some names like Azimuth, or like you would see some record that would have a cat on the cover and you would know it would be one of those Batucada Fantastica records or whatever. But like digging is a very different prospect in a foreign country where, you know, you're dealing in foreign currency and you're kind of trying to make things work. And it isn't just about the sample, the, you know, like somebody iconic and somebody known. You're looking for something new and unknown. And Madlib, of course, has like a great radar for that kind of thing. But I think we're all pursuing that, like that lost groove, that like that, you know, that rare thing that you just don't know when it's going to hit your life and change everything. Yeah. So, yeah, stuff.
I think maybe like one of my favorite parts about this is that I feel like stories of people's origins from this are like so iconic. And like I remember hearing DiBiase's like I was watching like Flying Lotus like cook and like just like making these like microwave beats that were just so fire. And like I'm not even sure if it was the 404 or if it was the 303, but one of those. And just being able to just like fly through these records and having that be, oh yeah, now I'm gonna grab this machine. It's just like it's such a wild concept and super lit.
Yeah, there is something to be said for some of those earlier samplers where you had to wrestle with the machine. Like I had a A3000 from Yamaha for a time, and it was a very distinct workflow that was challenging. You had to like torture yourself to make even the most small edits. You would have to really find the point and make it, and then like the whole decisiveness and the limitations of it, of course, are part of what was fun about making beats in some ways, that to make the most out of a second or 3 or a minute, whatever it was, the limitation was addling the cooking. It made you feel like you were, if you got something, you were really on fire. But the moment it started to open up and we had these like, not a zip disk, not like some really heavy laden, difficult time with it, it just the reason why the beat scene even like blew up is because it just got fast and people were able to make weird and do wild things. It totally is the reason it all kind of came together. It's, yeah. I mean, obviously genius producers and really cool sources and an openness to not always have an MC, all really important, but the machinery was really...
Limitations.
Yeah, but also freedoms within that. You know, like the tiny, even just the light at the end of the tunnel, like, I don't need to be stuck in less than a minute of sample time for my total beat, like for everything. Like, you don't have to unload, dump all the samples and that stuff was so tough about that era. In the 90s, anything, and that it was just off-putting. You didn't want to do it. Yeah. Unless you had a lot of money for really sophisticated systems, and even then you were still laboring to make something go. Yeah. So, this was the fire for sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh yeah.
Agreed. The go.
Could you remember when Ras G play? You sometimes play Ras G with you?
Yeah, a lot. We used to play a lot of shows together.
Could you talk about it?
Oh sure, yeah. Ross is. I still feel a lot of stuff about that, because I do feel like Ross, like many other artists, but also kind of young black men, stolen from us for reasons that I can't quite get my head around. So there's some feelings there that I still have to work on. But in terms of playing shows with Ross, it was really difficult to follow Ross. And I had to do that a lot. Be it at low end or other festivals, other situations. Like LA was always some other event happening and there would always be some lineup, and I would go on after him for some reason and just be like doomed. You would just be stuck, because not only would you be playing fire beats, you would turn everything up to 11, and the whole room would be shaking, right, with bass and all this stuff, and and it would be such a full sound, and then you would have to go on and do your toy beats after that. Like no matter what you played, it felt so small, because you would kind of adjust everything back so it wasn't in the red, and his own equipment would be so cooked and particular. And of course, I like my equipment to also be special and specific. But it was really hard because his vibes would be so strong, and he would often have specific fans or collaborators that would be dancers. It didn't feel like you were just going to a Ross set, you were going to a show, right? His own personage would be so on point, and he would be so abundant, he'd be so soft-spoken, but the moment he came on, he was a menace. And he'd be playing, it wasn't just that he would be playing, his original beats that would be made out of whatever source, but he would also just like really bring like immaculate vibes in general. We also had the chance to do that secondhand sure shots together, and I saw this whole other side of him, which wasn't so abundant on stage. Like he would be always pushing into into the red and kind of really making the equipment sing. But his own production process was like you could feed him any sample and he would flip it to be him. It was really special. Like that second Sure Shots, I think, is a great document of that time where he would just be in the shed, a literal shed, just burning after, blunt after blunt, and just finding from whatever secondhand thrift store thing, just the source. And yeah, it was so cool. Also, his touch on the sound, I feel like is just as iconic as a DiBiase or later Flylo or others, where he was just able to really rack the sound, like his motion on it would be so smooth and confident, but he would I remember times where he would just be in that shuddery delay for 10 seconds too long compared to other people. Other people are really fast and they're all really percussive about the way they use the effect, and they're just and he would be boom, perfect back on beat, it would just make the whole place go crazy, right? And it was totally as much as the material he cooked up was really iconic, it was just the way he was so fluid with it and so good about it and so confident with the way he would pull those stuff off. It was big. It was big. Yeah. But yeah, we miss him. So.
Also yeah, I had a Ras G show in my shop. Insta show, he's a setup. Yeah, very unique. Also, always he makes so loud. Yeah.
That's amazing.
He has a really secret request always. Yeah.
Word.
And part of it too is that you were talking about the compression that's possible on the 303, 404, etc. And it's really true of a lot of Roland gear, as you may know all too well. You turn the volume all the way up, and it has a different sound. I think it's well made, and it's made to be played through a range. You don't have to play it always cranked. But if you take those old drum machines, some of those older devices, the SP series, and you turn them up, it has a different color to the sound. Different way it proceeds through the circuit, different way the compression deals with it. And I think for many people, they'd be a little scared of the outcome, but Ras really saw the way through that to a place where it's not just there was an abundance, but it kind of folded back in on itself, and it just got a different veneer than simply the music by itself. He was an iconoclast that way,
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Right?
I could listen to these all day.
Nah, he was really cool.
Actually, I might have to head out.
It's about time. Yeah, I got my interview. Oh my God, I got my interviews right now. I have to go.
You have to say for everyone.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Time is tight. Yeah, appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. ありがとうございました。